Sunday of week 25, so just under 5 weeks to go now. 5 weeks, where has the time gone? And this is a recovery week after the big build week that I did last week. I'm just taking a much easier week this week. But by much easier, it's still including probably, depending on how today's run goes, around 85 to 95 kilometers of distance, probably closer to 85. The aim, as I always say, is I tend to run to time and elevation rather than distance, but that's the plan today. I'm going to try and go a little bit lighter as well before the next 2 weeks, which are going to be very, very specific to UTMB. So this run is more about just trying to get some running into the legs, because I've been doing a lot of power hiking and a lot of walking, but I haven't been doing too many long runs, if that makes sense. My long runs have consisted of a lot of walking, and there are some runnable sections of UTMB, so I want to make sure that I've still got some running in my legs. So the plan today is to go with a slightly lighter bag, not all the mandatory equipment, and get a decent distance in that time. All relatively speaking, I am an ultra runner after all, so a 3.5 hour run is going to be a lot shorter than any road runners that follow the channel. So yeah, just beginning to get packed up. Just finished putting the route on the old trusted Sunto Ambit 2. They're going to stop supporting this apparently. Absolutely gutted about that, because this thing has been going strong from day one. It's about 4 or 5 years old, maybe older than that, and works absolutely brilliantly. So yeah, got the stride power meter. I'm going to be using that as well, just for some extra insight. Been doing quite a lot of analysis in a system called WK05. It's just been released. They had an older version, WK04, which looks at things such as ground contact time, leg stiffness, things like that, which has been really insightful as well. Looking at it over different terrains just helps look at kind of running form and things like that. Anyway, enough of me talking. I'm going to go get my stuff packed and get out on the trail. Once I finish my coffee, of course. Got masses of potatoes at the moment in the garden, so I've got potatoes with some herbs and salt. Trying to get used to eating real food a bit, because that's what's going to be available at UTMB. Only have one drop bag for the whole race, and it's not even at halfway, so I'm going to have to make use of the aid stations, hence practicing that and eating real food. Pretty good actually. That's a long run done. Sorry there's not much footage as the camera died, so I didn't manage to capture anything, so this video is going to be slightly different this week. But taking you through the week that I did, as I mentioned, it was very much planned to be an easier week, and that is reflected in the training stress score. As you can see on the graph now that's on screen, it's very clear the build weeks and then the recovery weeks by training stress score. For those of you that don't use Training Peaks or not familiar with training stress, that is essentially a metrics which looks at how hard my training sessions have been, the intensity and the duration of them, to come up with a perceived level of stress on the body, and then that's the weekly cumulative total of the training stress score. So you can see the big build week followed by an easier week, the big build week followed by an easier week. So this week overall was quite a big easy week, if that makes sense. It was slightly higher training stress, and that was also reflected in the total distance run and the total elevation completed as well. Looking initially at the week broken down by day, on Monday it was a weights first recovery walk, which is kind of my standard session that I do nowadays on a Monday after a big run at the weekend. On the Tuesday it was an easy run, and that was very much testing some new shoes and sock combinations actually for UTMB, just getting used to that. And then that followed a steady state run, 2 by 30 minutes. I have done a video on steady state runs, I'll put a link to that up there so you can check it out. But essentially the steady state run was 2 by 30 minutes, and it's working just below lactate threshold intensity, and they were quite good. I did fade a little bit on the second one, and when I looked at the power data, it's quite clear that about 23-24 minutes into the first interval, my power data dropped. In the second one, I wasn't able to get to the same power versus the heart rate. So I was in the correct heart rate zone, but the power zone was lower for the second one, so clearly I had some fatigue in my legs. And as a result of that, I actually had a rest day on the Thursday just to try and get my body recovered. I had a few aches and pains which weren't really going away. Had a bit of a sore knee, and also my left calf was hurting a bit, so the Achilles, lower half of the left calf and Achilles area. On the Friday, I did a hill repetition. So this is a new type of climbing I've been doing. I've moved away from the hill sprints I was doing a few weeks ago. Again, I did do a video on that. I'll link to that up there. But these hill sessions now are very much working on longer intervals, slightly lower intensity, and a mix of power hiking and fast feet, and I will be doing a video on those in the near future. That was quite a hard session, but it was an improvement on the previous week when I'd done it for the first time. And then the Saturday again was just an easy run, again feeling quite sore actually, so I wasn't very happy. Moving on to Sunday was my long run, as you saw. And this was a very different long run for me. I wasn't going up into the mountains, doing power hiking, taking the poles and all the mandatory kit. This one I wanted to do as a run, so I stayed lower level and tried to find more runnable trails, less technical tracks, to just get practice running again, because I haven't done too many long runs where I've actually been running consistently for such a long period of time. And that was quite good. Over the 3.5 hours that I did, I managed about 30k, as you can see on screen. However, during that run, I was still feeling really sore. So moving into next week, I've completely changed the plan. It was meant to be another big build week. However, I'm going to take 3 days off. Even if I feel completely fine on Monday, which is when I will publish this video, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm not going to do any running until Thursday at the earliest. I will potentially do a walk on Wednesday just to test the calf, because that's the main concern at the moment. As I see it at the moment, I can maintain my fitness. I may be able to get a slight improvement on fitness before UTMB, but it would be minimal now given that there's less than 5 weeks to go. However, I can definitely cause myself to get injured, and I can definitely cause myself to be a lot slower in the race if I don't start resting up and listening to the body. So based on that, I am listening to my calf. I'm going to have at least 3 days off from running. Within week 25 as well, there was a strength and conditioning session. Originally it was meant to be 2 planned, but I dropped one again because of the pains I was having. But that's again in the power phase, which I've talked about a little bit. So my strength and conditioning plan started off in the stabilization phase, progressed through to strength, and now very much in the power phase. And that's more explosive exercises, which are exactly the sort of things that I don't think my Achilles and calf muscle would appreciate. It's a slight frustration, but I'm glad it's happening now and not in, say, taper week, because worst case, I do have the luxury of having 1 or 2 weeks off from running and still having 3 weeks left to pick it back up again if I need to. So I'm really going to be paying attention to the body now and making sure that I turn up on race day as fully fit as I possibly can be. I'm not going to say 100% fit, but if I can get there feeling as good as I am now, that would be great. I just don't want to make it any worse. One graph that I thought was quite interesting and I will share with you is just how the training's progressed in the month of July. Appreciate we're nearly at the end of it, and maybe in August by the time you're watching this, versus the first half of the year. So the graph you can see on screen now is showing 2 different shaded areas. One is looking at July and the other one's looking at the first 6 months of 2019, and it's looking at my peak pace over different distances. As you can see, as you progress further to the right on the graph, the distance is increasing, and you can see that my peak paces have all been during the month of July. So the training has moved from the short, faster efforts to longer, prolonged efforts, such as the steady state run. So although I'm not running as fast, obviously you do slow down the longer the run is, but you can see that overall I'm increasing my maximum pace over 15 kilometers, over 30 kilometers, which is really encouraging, because that's just showing how the training is becoming more specific for the race. So ultimately, had to hit the reset button a little bit, but that's all part of running and ultra running and listening to my body. So I am taking the advice I would give any of my athletes and resting up for a few days. I'm hoping that with that I'll be able to do basically a 10-day build block before the taper period. That is the initial plan I've put in place, but I'm not stuck to that. If it has to be a full week off or a week and a half off, then I'm more than happy to do that as well. I'm quite happy with where I am now fitness wise. I will be sharing in the upcoming weeks my timings and goals for the race, and also looking at more detail around specific kit and what I will be carrying and my fueling and nutrition plan for that as well. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on those. Also, if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up by hitting the button down below, and make sure you subscribe to my newsletter. I send out a weekly newsletter with training advice, top tips. There's a link to my website down below where you'll be able to find a sign up form, and also all my social media links are also down below, so if you don't follow me on Twitter or Instagram, please consider subscribing to those as well. I'll see you next time.